The road wound through the hills like a pale scar across the world. It stretched for miles beneath a high blue sky, disappearing between slopes of golden grass, mossy stone, and old trees that leaned over the path as though listening for secrets. Wildflowers nodded in the breeze, bees drifted lazily between blossoms. Far ahead, beyond the green shoulders of the land, mountains rose like broken teeth against the clouds. Somewhere beyond those mountains, if rumor had any spine to it, nested Sindri, the White One, a large and old white dragon that had terrorized villages through generations. Dia of Drangar intended to find her. The barbarian marched with the confidence of someone who believed most problems could be solved by walking straight at them until they became frightened or dead. She stood 6 feet and 8 inches tall, broad-shouldered and powerful, wrapped in dark furs, black leather, and enough steel to make a blacksmith jealous. Axes hung at her hips, knives lined her boots, throwing hatchets crossed her back, beside coils of heavy chain and a heavy pack. Every step made some weapon clink softly against another. She looked like a warband that had learned to walk on 2 legs. Beside her, Daylily Dazzleshimmer floated upside down. The 4-foot fairy drifted lazily through the air, emerald wings shimmering like sunlit leaves. Her long, dark hair hung beneath her in a ridiculous curtain while she studied a butterfly perched on the end of her nose. "How much further?" Dia asked. Daylily crossed her eyes to look at the butterfly. "I don't know," she replied. Dia's jaw tightened. "You said that yesterday." "I didn't know yesterday either." The butterfly fluttered away. Daylily watched it go with deep, heartfelt betrayal. Then she flew directly into a tree branch. Thunk. The fairy dropped out of the air and landed face first in the grass. Dia did not stop walking. "You hit a tree," Dia said flatly. Daylily raised one finger from the grass. "The tree moved." "No." "It did." "No." Daylily rolled onto her back, cheeks puffed in wounded dignity. "You don't know. You were looking forward." "I heard the tree win." "That was mean." "That was accurate." Daylily narrowed her eyes at the sky above her. "Someday, Dia of Drangar, I will say something so clever that it will destroy you emotionally." Dia glanced back with one eyebrow raised. "Was that it?" "No," Daylily muttered, lifting herself back into the air. "That was a warning shot." Dia smirked and continued down the road. For a while, there was only the sound of boots on dirt, wing beats in the warm air, and the occasional metallic clatter of the small armory Dia carried on her back. Daylily hummed as she flew beside her, dipping low to skim her fingers through tall grass, then rising again whenever a bird or oddly shaped cloud stole her attention. "You think Sindri is really white?" Daylily asked. "That is generally what the White One suggests," Dia said. "Yes, but people exaggerate. Maybe she's beige." Dia stared ahead. "Then I will be disappointed." "What if she's nice?" "Then I will be more disappointed." Daylily gasped. "You don't want a nice dragon?" "I want an interesting dragon." "Interesting means dangerous when you say it." "Yes." "Sometimes I worry your hobbies are just elaborate suicide attempts with better posture." Dia's smile showed teeth. "That is one of the kinder things you've said about me." Daylily opened her mouth to answer, then both women stopped. The wind changed. The road ahead curved around a low hill, and beyond that hill a dark ribbon of smoke rose into the sky. It did not drift like a campfire. It climbed thick and ugly, carrying the bitter scent of burned wood, spilled oil, and something beneath that made both Daylily's wings falter. Dia's expression hardened. Daylily's humor vanished. "That's not camp smoke," the fairy whispered. "No," Dia said. She moved first. Her long strides ate the road quickly. weapons shifting across her body as she climbed the hill. Daylily flew beside her, silent now, green light already gathering faintly around her fingers. They crested the rise. The caravan lay broken below. 3 wagons had overturned beside the road. One still smoked from a blackened hole burned through its side. Crates had been smashed open, barrels were split and leaking grain into the dirt. Blankets lay scattered among broken wheels, snapped harnesses, and dark stains in the dust. People moved among the wreckage in stunned fragments. A woman knelt beside a covered body, both hands pressed to her mouth. A boy with a bandaged head sat against a wagon wheel, staring at nothing. 2 men tried to lift a beam off a trapped mule, while another survivor held a bloody cloth against its shoulder. Children cried quietly under the shadow of the least damaged wagon. Daylily made a small, wounded sound. Dia said nothing. Her eyes moved across the scene with cold precision. Tracks in the dirt, deep, heavy footprints, arrows with crude black fletching, axe marks in the wood frames, a broken tusk near the road. Orcs, she said. Daylily looked at her. You can tell from here? I can smell them. That is disgusting and impressive. Mostly disgusting. An older man near the center of the wreckage noticed them. He had blood dried along one side of his face and gray dust clinging to his beard. When his eyes landed on Dia, hope struck him so visibly it almost hurt to see. He hurled toward her, limping badly. Thank the gods, he breathed. Please, we need. Dia stopped in front of him and planted both hands on her belt. Which way to Sindri's mountain? The man blinked. Daylily blinked. A nearby wounded guard lowered the cup he had been drinking from. What? The caravan leader asked. The dragon, Dia said. White scales. Famous. Probably rude. The man stared at her as if his mind had refused to understand the words. I don't know. Dia nodded once. Unfortunate. Then she turned and started walking back toward the road. For one terrible moment, no one spoke. The caravan leader's hopeful expression collapsed into something smaller and older. Daylily shot after Dia and planted herself directly in front of the barbarian's face, wings buzzing fiercely. No. Dia stopped. Move. No. Daylily. Dia? I am walking. I noticed. That's the problem. Dia looked past her toward the mountains. We are looking for a dragon. Daylily pointed both hands back at the ruined caravan. They are bleeding. They appear aware of that. The fairy's mouth fell open. That is not a sentence normal people say. I never claimed to be normal. No one has ever accused you of it. Good. Daylily hovered closer. Her expression softened beneath the frustration. Dia, they need help. Dia stared at her. Daylily stared back. The silence between them stretched until even the wind seemed uncomfortable. At last, Dia exhaled through her nose with theatrical annoyance, turned around, and marched back toward the caravan leader. Daylily followed, muttering, See, was that so hard? Yes, Dia said. The leader straightened as Dia returned, but this time his hope was cautious, bruised. Dia crossed her arms. What happened? The man swallowed. Orcs. They came from the hills. We didn't see them until they were already on us. How many? 30, maybe more. Where? He pointed toward the east, where wooded hill rose beyond the road. There. They came down screaming. We tried to form a line, but we had families with us. Children, old folk. We weren't soldiers. Dia's gaze flicked across the survivors. No, she said. You weren't. The man looked down, shame tightening his face. Daylily landed beside him and placed one tiny hand gently against his arm. She means that as an observation, Daylily said softly. Not an insult. Probably. Dia said nothing. The leader drew a shaky breath. They killed those who fought, took our food, medicine, 2 horses, tools, anything they could carry. Dia shrugged. Food can regrow. Tools can be remade. The man stared at her, wounded by the bluntness. Daylily turned slowly and gave Dia a look sharp enough to cut leather. Dia noticed. What? Maybe don't comfort people like a rock with teeth? Daylily hissed. I said it would be fine. You said food regrows while standing next to corpses. Dia glanced at the covered bodies, then back at Daylily. I see your point. The caravan leader's voice broke before either of them could continue. They took my daughter. The words changed everything. Dia went still, not tense, not startled, still. The kind of stillness that came before a blade left its sheath. Daylily's face went pale. They took her? The man nodded, grief cracking through his composure. Mira, she's 20. She tried to help one of the children hide under the wagon, and orcs saw her. They dragged her away when they fled. Dia's eyes narrowed. How long ago? Less than an hour. Alive? When they took her, the leader whispered. Yes. Dia turned toward the eastern hills. The air around her seemed to darken by a shade. Daylily knew that look. She had seen it in ruins, in monster dens, in the moments before very bad people discovered that Dia of Drangar did, in fact, possess a moral code. It was just written in blood and delivered late. Daylily, Dia said. The fairy straightened. Yes? Leave behind anything we don't need. Daylily's wings shifted. Her eyes brightened, not happily exactly, but with fierce purpose. We're going after her? Dia looked back at the caravan leader. Which way did they run? The man pointed again, hand trembling. That path through the trees. Their camp may be somewhere beyond the ridge. Please, I can pay. Dia raised one hand. I didn't ask for coin. The leader faltered. Dia stepped closer, towering over him like a storm given bones. When we return, she said, voice low and absolute, your daughter will be with us. Understand? Tears filled the man's eyes. He nodded. Daylily fluttered up beside Dia, her staff glowing with soft green light. And we'll bring back what supplies we can, the fairy added warmly. And maybe some extra things if the orcs have any nice blankets. Not that blankets make up for the trauma, of course. That came out wrong. I mean, blankets are comforting. Unless they smell like orcs. Then absolutely not. The leader stared at her. Daylily winced. I'm going to stop talking. Good, Dia said. Daylily glared. I was being emotionally supportive. You were being a blanket merchant. Still supportive. Dia turned and began walking towards the eastern trail. The barbarian did not run. She did not need to. Her stride alone promised violence. Daylily flew after her, pausing only long enough to whisper a blessing over a wounded child. Green light spilled softly from her fingers and sank into the boy's bandaged brow. His crying eased. His breathing steadied. Then the fairy hurried on. The road disappeared behind them. The forest swallowed them whole. And somewhere ahead, beneath the trees, the orcs who shattered the caravan were laughing over stolen food, unaware that something far worse than justice was coming for them. Dia of Drangar was coming. And Daylily Dazzleshimmer, who treated danger like a playground and cruelty like a personal insult, was coming with her. The forest grew darker as they followed the trail. Not because night had fallen, not yet, but because the trees became older, thicker, the trunks twisted together in ancient knots, moss draped from branches like faded curtains. The sunlight that managed to reach the forest floor arrived in scattered green fragments. The orcs had not bothered to hide their passage. Broken branches littered the path. Trampled ferns lay crushed beneath heavy boots. The occasional bloodstain marked where the stolen prisoners or wounded raiders had stumbled. Dia moved swiftly through it all, For a woman carrying enough weapons to start a small war, she was remarkably quiet. Daylily floated overhead, occasionally pointing out things that Dia had already noticed. Fresh tracks. I know. Broken branch. I know. Bird. Dia looked up. A bird sat on a branch. What about it? Daylily shrugged. I just thought it was neat. Dia continued walking. The fairy grinned. An hour later they found evidence of a kidnapped woman. Daylily spotted it first. The fairy descended toward a thorn bush growing beside the trail. A scrap of blue cloth fluttered among the branches. Daylily carefully removed it. Her expression darkened. Dia? The barbarian turned. Daylily held up the torn fragment. One of the caravan women was wearing this color. Dia took the cloth, examined it. Fresh tear, reasoned. The woman had either struggled or tried to leave a trail. A slow smile crossed Dia's face. Smart. Daylily nodded. Very. The fairy tucked the fabric safely into her pouch. We should bring it back to her father. We will. The certainty in Dia's voice left no room for doubt. As afternoon faded toward evening, the trail climbed into rocky hills. The trees thinned. Smoke became visible through the branches. Camp smoke. Fresh camp smoke. The orcs were close. Daylily landed on a boulder beside Dia. What's the plan? Dia crouched and studied the terrain below. The camp occupied a natural bowl between several hills. Crude wooden barricades surrounded the perimeter. Tents made from hides and scavenged canvas stood around large cooking fires. Several stolen wagons from the caravan had been dragged into the camp. Crates, barrels, supplies, food, everything the caravan leader had described, and more. At least 40 orcs moved through the camp, maybe 50. Several stood guard, others drank around fires. A handful argued over stolen goods. At the center stood the largest tent, far larger than the others, the sort a chief might use. Daylily followed her gaze. That's a lot of orcs. Mm-hmm. I was hoping for fewer. Why? Less running. Dia glanced at her. You can fly. That's not the point. The fairy studied the camp for a moment. Then her expression became serious, a rare thing. Do you think she's still alive? Dia looked toward the largest tent. Yes. Daylily blinked. No hesitation? No. How do you know? Dia pointed. Several armed orcs stood near the chief's tent, not guarding the camp, guarding something specific. Daylily followed her reasoning immediately. Oh. The fairy's jaw tightened. The playful smile disappeared. Then let's go get her. Dia nodded, then stood. Daylily frowned. Wait. What? We're not sneaking? No. The fairy sighed dramatically. I ask every time. You do. And every time I already know the answer. You do. The orc never saw her. One moment he stood atop a wooden watch platform scratching his stomach. The next moment Dia landed on the platform beside him. The entire structure groaned. The orc managed exactly one surprised blink. Then Dia grabbed him by the face and threw him. The unfortunate warrior sailed through the air screaming. He crashed into 2 others near a fire. All 3 disappeared in the explosion of sparks. Silence swept across the camp. Every head turned. Dozens of eyes landed on Dia. The barbarian stood atop the watch platform like a queen surveying her kingdom. She slowly reached for one of her throwing axes. Hello. Then she threw it. The axe crossed the camp in a blur. An orc dropped instantly. Chaos erupted. Intruders. Attack. Get them. Orcs scrambled for weapons. Warriors rushed toward the platform. Archers grabbed bows. The camp exploded into motion. Dia grinned. The grin made several orcs hesitate. The hesitation killed them. The barbarian jumped from the platform. She crashed into the dirt below like a falling boulder. The impact knocked nearby warriors off their feet. Before they could recover, she was already moving. An axe flashed. One orc spun to the ground. A second strike shattered his shield. A third caved in armor. Dia flowed through combat with terrifying efficiency. No wasted motion. No hesitation. Every strike carried enough force to break bone. Meanwhile, Daylily descended from the sky. The fairy landed atop a wagon, placed both hands on her staff, and smiled. "This is going to be fun." Green light exploded outward. The forest answered immediately. Roots burst from the ground. Vines erupted beneath charging warriors. Trees groaned. Branches twisted. An orc running toward Dia suddenly found itself yanked upside down in the air. Another disappeared beneath a tangle of roots. A third collided headfirst with a tree that had not been there a moment ago. Daylily laughed, then accidentally backed into a wooden post. "Ow!" She rubbed her head. The vines continued strangling orcs without interruption. The battle spread across the camp. Dia cut through groups of warriors like a storm. Orcs rushed her 3 at a time. 5 at a time. 10 at a time. It didn't matter. Axes flew from her hands. Knives appeared seemingly from nowhere. A spear impaled one warrior before she immediately abandoned it and continued forward. Ancestral magic began awakening around her. Purple light crept across her skin. Ghostly shapes emerged from the darkness. Massive wolves made from spectral fire. A translucent bear. Shadowy warriors carrying ancient weapons. The spirits circled their descendant, protecting, hunting, remembering. Several orcs froze, their courage finally cracking. Dia showed them no mercy. At the center of camp, a horn sounded, a deep, ugly note. Every remaining orc turned toward the chief's tent. The tent flaps burst open. Something enormous emerged. The war chief. He stood nearly 8 feet tall. His armor consisted of mismatched plates taken from fallen enemies. Scars covered every inch of visible skin. A massive great axe rested across one shoulder. The weapon looked large enough to split horses. The chief surveyed the battlefield, his warriors dead, his camp burning, his enemies advancing. Then his eyes landed on Dia. The orc pointed directly at her. "You." Dia pointed at herself. "Me." The chief roared. The hills echoed with it. Then he charged. The ground trembled beneath his feet. Daylily winced. "That is one very large orc." Dia smiled. "Good." The chief swung first. The massive axe screamed through the air. Dia caught the haft with one hand. The impact blasted dirt outward. The chief's eyes widened. So did every nearby orc's. Dia tilted her head. Small. Then she headbutted him. The crack echoed across the camp. The chief staggered backwards. Blood sprayed from his nose. Dia stepped forward, headbutted him again. The orc dropped to one knee. A third headbutt flattened him completely. The chief collapsed like a felled tree. Silence spread across the battlefield. Daylily floated nearby. "That seemed excessive." Dia shrugged. He was still conscious after the second one. "Fair." The remaining orcs broke. Many fled. Others threw down weapons. A few attempted desperate last stands. None lasted long. Within minutes, the battle was effectively over. The camp belonged to Dia and Daylily, and yet something still felt wrong. Dia sensed it first. A faint pressure. A strange weight in the air. Magic. Old magic. Powerful magic. The feeling drew her gaze toward the chief's tent. Daylily felt it a moment later. The fairy frowned. "Do you feel that?" "Yes." "I don't like it." Dia started walking toward the tent. "Then stay outside." Daylily immediately followed. "That's not how friendship works." The interior of the chief's tent surprised them. Maps covered a large table. Crates of stolen supplies lined the walls. Weapons hung from racks. Treasures from a dozen raids glittered in piles. But none of that mattered, because in the far end of the tent stood a weapon, waiting, A great axe, larger than the chief's, forged from black steel veined with faint crimson light. Ancient runes crawled across the blade. The edge seemed impossibly sharp. The weapon radiated power, not evil. Not exactly, but hungry, focused, purposeful, like a hunting beast straining against a leash. Daylily immediately pointed. "No." Dia looked at her. "Why?" "No." "Why?" "Because it looks cursed. It looks interesting. Those are usually the same thing." Dia walked toward it. The feeling intensified. The axe seemed to pull at something deep inside her. Not temptation, recognition. As though it already knew her. As though it had been waiting. Daylily groaned. "You're absolutely going to touch it." "Yes." "You didn't even think about it." "No." "You are the reason warning labels exist." Dia ignored her, and wrapped one hand around the haft. The moment she did, the world vanished. One moment Dia stood inside the orc chief's tent. The next she stood upon a battlefield beneath a black sky. Thousands of bodies stretched to the horizon. Broken banners whipped in a cold wind. Ruined castles burned. The air smelled of blood, smoke, and grief. A great axe rested in her hands. The same great axe, only now it looked new, untarnished, alive. Around her stood warriors. Not one army, many. Men, women, dwarves, elves, soldiers from 100 forgotten realms, all dead, all watching. Dia slowly turned. No one spoke. Then she realized they weren't looking at her. They were looking at the axe. A voice echoed through the darkness, not spoken loud, felt, remembered. We were the shield. The battlefield changed. A village appeared. Children ran between cottages. Farmers worked fields. Families laughed. Then monsters came. The village burned. People died. The axe appeared. A lone warrior wielded it. The monsters fell. The vision changed again. Bandits, demons, slavers, necromancers, cultists, tyrants, again and again, across centuries, across countless battles, always the same. The axe sought monsters. The axe hunted evil. The axe destroyed those who preyed upon the helpless. Another thought echoed through her mind, stronger this time. Find them. The battlefield vanished. Punish them. The darkness shattered. Do not stop. Dia opened her eyes. She stood once more inside the tent. Daylily hovered nearby, looking nervous, very nervous. The fairy's wings buzzed anxiously. "Dia?" The barbarian blinked. The axe felt perfect in her hands, balanced, natural, as though it had been forged specifically for her. Daylily slowly pointed. "You smiled." Dia looked at her. "Yes. You never smile like that." "What kind of smile?" "The kind that gets villages evacuated." Dia glanced down at the weapon, then back at Daylily. "I love it." The fairy groaned. "Of course you do." An angry roar erupted outside. Several roars, actually. Apparently not every orc had decided fleeing was a good idea. Dia smiled wider. "Excellent. Dia?" The barbarian was already walking. The axe rested comfortably on one shoulder. Daylily hurried up to her. "You don't even know what it does." "No." "You just picked up a magical murder axe." "Correct." "You should investigate it." "I am." "How?" Dia pushed aside the tent flap. "By hitting things." The remaining orcs gathered near the center of camp. Perhaps 20 remained. The smartest had fled. The brave were dead. These unfortunate souls occupied the middle ground. Determined enough to fight, not smart enough to run. They saw Dia emerge, carrying the black great axe. Their confidence visibly declined. Daylily noticed. "They seem worried." "They should." The barbarian started walking. The orcs charged. The first warrior reached her. Dia swung. The axe cut through him effortlessly. Then something impossible happened. Crimson light erupted from the blade. Not fire, Not lightning, energy, raw, violent power. The wave blasted outward. 3 nearby orcs were hurled through the air. A wagon exploded. A tent vanished. The ground cracked. Silence followed. Dia stopped, looked at the devastation, looked at the axe, looked back at the devastation. Then she laughed, a deep, delighted laugh. Oh, I definitely like this axe. Daylily stared. The remaining orcs stared. One particularly unlucky orc dropped his weapon. The battle became profoundly unfair. Not that it had been fair before, but now it entered entirely new territory. Every swing of the axe released bursts of crimson energy, not enough to level forests, not enough to destroy mountains, but more than enough to scatter groups of orcs like leaves in the storm. One swing shattered shields. Another split a barricade in half. A third launched 2 warriors through a tent. The axe seemed eager, enthusiastic, happy. If a weapon could be happy, Daylily suspected this one could. That concerned her. An orc captain attempted a desperate charge. The warrior lowered a spear and sprinted toward Dia. The barbarian watched him come, waited, then swung. The captain disappeared. Not metaphorically. The orc simply ceased being a part of the conversation. The crimson wave behind him demolished half a cooking station. Daylily winced. That seemed excessive. Dia stared at the axe, then spoke quietly. I think it likes me. I don't think that's the lesson here. Within minutes, the battle ended. The last surviving orc fled into the wilderness. Dia considered pursuing him. Daylily grabbed her arm. No. The barbarian looked down. He escaped. He escaped because he is running away. He is still an orc. He is no longer the current problem. Dia thought about it, then sighed. Fine. Daylily smiled triumphantly, then immediately tripped over a crate. The fairy disappeared behind it. A muffled voice emerged. I meant to do that. Dia nodded. Of course. The 2 adventurers searched the camp. It didn't take long to find the prisoner. A small wooden structure stood near the rear of the camp, more cage than cabin. Daylily heard crying before they reached it. The fairy hurried forward. Inside sat a young woman wrapped in a stolen blanket. Dirty, exhausted, terrified, but alive. Daylily's face softened immediately. Oh. The woman flinched, then saw the fairy, saw the green glow, saw the absence of tusks, and began to cry harder. Easy, Daylily said gently. We're here to help. The fairy unlocked the door using a combination of magic and enthusiastic kicking. Mostly kicking. The woman stumbled out. Daylily wrapped her in a hug. The woman immediately hugged back, hard. Daylily disappeared beneath the embrace. Air! The fairy squeaked. The woman released her. Sorry. It's okay. Daylily smiled warmly. We found you. The woman finally noticed Dia. The barbarian stood nearby with Grief Cleaver resting across her shoulders. Blood-covered portions of her armor. Purple ancestral magic still flickered faintly around her. Several spectral wolves prowled through the shadows behind her. The woman froze. Daylily followed her gaze. Oh, don't worry. The fairy waved dismissively. She's with me. The woman looked unconvinced. Dia frowned. Was that insulting? Maybe a little. Recovering the stolen supplies took longer. The orcs had looted extensively. Food, medicine, blankets, tools, seeds, everything. Dia loaded several wagons while Daylily organized supplies. Eventually, the fairy climbed onto a barrel. We should leave some behind. Dia looked up. Why? Because we're not taking 3 wagons. The barbarian considered this. Fair. Daylily pointed. We take enough for travel. The caravan gets the rest. Dia nodded. Acceptable. The return journey occurred beneath a sky painted gold and crimson by sunset. The rescued woman rode in one wagon. Daylily sat beside her, talking constantly, mostly to keep her distracted. The conversation wandered through topics such as flowers, birds, healing magic, and whether squirrels had organized governments. The woman seemed genuinely unsure. Daylily seemed genuinely convinced. Dia walked ahead of the wagon. Grief Cleaver rested on her shoulder. Every so often she glanced at it. The axe remained silent. Mostly. Yet she could still feel it. A sense of purpose. A sense of certainty. The weapon knew exactly what it wanted. Monsters. Villains. Predators. The things that hid in the darkness and hurt the weak. The axe wanted them all dead. Dia found this surprisingly reasonable. The caravan spotted them shortly before dusk. Cheers erupted immediately. People ran toward the road. The rescued woman's father reached them first. The moment he saw his daughter climbing down from the wagon, his knees nearly gave out. He wrapped her in a desperate embrace. Neither let go. Several survivors began crying. Others laughed. Children cheered. Daylily wiped at her eyes. Dia pretended not to notice. The caravan leader eventually approached them. His daughter safe beside him. Emotion filled his face. "I don't know how to thank you." Dia shrugged. "She's alive." The man looked past her, at the wagons, at the recovered supplies, at the medicine, the food, the tools, everything. His eyes widened. "You brought it all back." "Mostly," Daylily smiled. "We kept a little." The fairy held up a loaf of bread. "We got hungry." The leader laughed. For the first time since they had met, he actually laughed. The survivors insisted on feeding them. Dia accepted immediately. Daylily accepted twice. The evening passed around a fire. Stories were shared. Food was eaten. Children listened wide-eyed as exaggerated tales of the rescue began spreading through the camp. By midnight, Dia had apparently defeated 300 orcs. By dawn, it would likely become 500. Daylily encouraged none of this, mostly because she was explaining squirrel politics. The next morning arrived bright and clear. The caravan prepared to leave. So did Dia and Daylily. The rescued woman hugged them both before they departed. Even Dia, the barbarian, looked deeply uncomfortable through the process. Daylily enjoyed this immensely. Finally, the caravan leader approached one last time. "You saved us." Dia adjusted Grief Cleaver on her shoulder. "No." The man blinked. "No? We solved a problem." Then she pointed toward the road ahead, toward distant mountains, toward the horizon, toward a dragon. "Our next problem is that way." The leader followed her gaze, his eyes widened. "You're really going after Sindri?" Dia grinned. The grin looked remarkably similar to the one she'd worn before attacking the orc camp. "Yes." Daylily groaned. "Oh no." "What?" "That's your dragon smile." Dia's grin widened. The fairy buried her face in her hands. The caravan leader laughed. The two adventurers turned back toward the road, toward the mountain, toward danger, toward whatever waited in Sindri's lair. And as they disappeared into the morning sunlight, Grief Cleaver rested upon Dia's shoulder, silent and patient, waiting for the next monster, waiting for the next hunt, waiting for the next reason to swing.